So, welcome to the podcast. Quite a familiar face to the bagpiping world, if you don't mind me saying. Stuart Samson, how are you, sir? Are you well?
Hi, Rob. Yeah, thanks very much. It's a great privilege to be on your show, and thanks very much for the invite.
Oh, here, if anything, the honour's ours, sir. I have to say, I have been a huge fan of yours for years, and it's
Right.
absolutely amazing to have you on the show. But we have you here for a very good reason. We're going to talk about your new collection of music called the Parkgrove Collection. We'll get that plug in at the very beginning. But I do want to talk to you later about that. First of all, I do want to introduce people to who might not know who you are and your influence in the piping scene. Am I right in thinking you had over a 30-year career with piping in the military?
Yeah, it was 30 years I served in the military. I actually joined as a boy soldier, so I was 15 when I joined up.
Really? Wow.
And then I did sort of about a year and a half in juniors, and it was a
Mhm.
really good pipe band. It was stationed at Edinburgh at the time, at Dreghorn Barracks. And that's where it gave me a good introduction into my piping in the army, leadership skills, and then I eventually joined my regiment of choice, the Gordon Highlanders.
That's it indeed. So yeah, from the Gordon Highlanders, then you went on to hold various different pipe major roles then with various different regiments. Isn't that right?
Well, yes, it's I was the pipe major of the Gordon Highlanders just before the amalgamation,
Hmm.
and that was a proud to have been pipe major of the Gordon Highlanders because it was my regiment of choice. And then we had an amalgamation, and I got posted to the School of Music at Glencorse Barracks, which is a piping and drumming wing. So I became the pipe major instructor at the school, and the pipe major of the Queensland Highlanders when we amalgamated together to become the Highlanders. He continued, that was Alistair Gillis, and he continued as a pipe major, bringing the Highlanders forward.
Indeed. So can I ask you then about your time at the school during that? What did that role entail? Did you have like an active teaching role, like with students every day, or how did that work?
Yeah, well, the school at Milton Bridge, there was a few schools at the time in the military. You had the Army School of Bagpipe Music, Army School of Piping at Edinburgh Castle,
Yes.
and then at Milton Bridge Camp in Edinburgh, we had all the other courses. So it was piping and drumming up to a certain level. And
Hmm.
then once you got on the advanced courses, that's when you went to the castle and you did the other piping courses. So I was doing like the beginner courses and the intermediate courses. And then
I
the
see.
drumming would be done right up to advanced standard at Milton Bridge.
There you are. So I know from my most of my experience is in piping in the civilian world. So qualifications that we can get at like the conservatoire and stuff, are they comparable with qualifications and things you can get in the military?
Well, to be quite honest, Rob, I often think back, thinking, what if? When I joined the army, I was desperate to join the army because I wanted to be a piper in the
Yeah.
military. But the big draw as well was you got a pipe major certificate, and at
Ah,
that
yes.
time there wasn't the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. There was no degree course for bagpipes,
Mm.
so that was really the only qualification that was out there, and I really wanted that qualification, thinking beyond the army.
Yes.
When I done my service, and then further down the line, there became a degree course, sort of Royal Conservatoire. So you
Hmm.
think, well, would I have joined the army or would I have not? But I probably would have.
Hmm.
And I would say anybody who's interested in joining the army as a fighter, I would recommend it, strongly. It's a
Oh,
great
for
experience.
sure.
It still
Yeah.
is.
And if anything, just to refer it to recent news, actually, we've seen all of the incredible footage from the funeral just this past weekend there of His Royal Highness, and the piper that was on display playing the flowers at the forest at the ceremony. It was just breathtaking. It was one of the most poignant moments I feel of the service, and it's something that bagpipes could really bring to something like that. You've had quite a number of memorable moments yourself, Stuart, with piping in the military. Have you got any standout moments that you could think that was pretty special?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to congratulate the piper, playing at the
Yeah.
service, Pipe Major Peter Grant from the
Mm,
Highlanders. I mean, it was magnificent.
that
I mean,
was.
and imagine the intense pressure. on that
I
as
couldn't
well.
even think. Yeah, imagine that.
It's not just the playing; it's the whole responsibility
Yeah.
of that moment. You know, nervous, of course. Nerves is good, though. It's a good leveler. You know, it makes you focus. But I thought he played beautifully, and his pipes were magnificent, and it's just very fitting.
Yeah. Oh, it was totally. I completely agree. Yeah. So, did you
And I'm
have any
saying,
moment yourself? Yeah, like
and,
that.
I'm saying that because I've experienced that. You know,
Mm.
you play lone piper, you know, up at the ramparts at the castle. You do the Hogmanay show. You're bringing in the bells, and
That's
that's
right.
live. That's live as well. So you're thinking this has got to go right.
Aye.
So these are pressure things, and being, you know, all pipers are hoping that the pipes are going to sound well, you
Hmm.
know, on the actual performance. So they're all very self-critical, us pipers. But
That's it.
yeah, I mean, for me, I enjoyed that side of it. You know, I like to go out and perform, and I like the pressure.
Mm. That's it indeed. 'Cause you always have it in the back of your mind. Am I going to have a reed fall into the bag here, or or something terrible? You know.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, it does that does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you actually set your pipes up in such a way because when you strike in the bag, like you can't get what we call a misfire.
Hmm.
You've got to strike. You've got to happen first time. So you try 100 times and it never happened once. You think, right, I'm confident that my reeds are set up well. I'm not
Yeah.
going to get a misfire.
That's it indeed.
But it has happened to me a couple of times.
Oh, mercy, really? Oh
Yeah,
no.
and you've just got to deal with it.
That's it. You just have to do what you can, I suppose, at
Well,
that time.
it's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact of playing the pipes. And
Yeah.
if you're doing solo and you have a misfire, it doesn't really matter. You just stop and you start again. But if
That's
you're
it.
playing as part of an ensemble, when you've got to come in at a precise moment and you get a misfire, then that can be quite
Yeah.
scary. So, so you've got to try and keep that all out of your mind.
Yeah, you're probably best forgetting about it and just remaining confident. Yeah, for sure. So, Stuart, as you'd mentioned there about standing on the ramparts at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, can you describe the feeling of what it's like being up there? Because I know there's generations of players that look at that footage, you know, and think, "Wow." Do you ever get that wow feeling as you're up there?
Yeah, well, you get picked to do it. You're not allowed to do it unless you've got a pipe majors course certificate.
Hmm.
When I was 7, that was the sort of the baseline. And I've done it a few times. And the very first time I done it, yes, of course, you're nervous. It's quite a large area that you're standing on, so it's not really actually you're right on the edge.
Oh, right. Okay.
When the lights come up, the spotlights come on you, you do feel as if you're getting sort of drawn towards the edge. It's a real, quite a surreal thing. When you do a rehearsal, maybe during the day you're up there and it's daylight and you think, oh, this is not too bad. But then when you're actually doing it at night time, it's dark and the spotlights come on. For the
Yeah.
first time when you've never done it, it really is wow. You know, and you just feel as if there's nobody there. You're just totally isolated.
Wow.
And then
Just
you're
as if you're
like,
playing on your own. Yeah.
but you can still see down onto the esplanade.
Yeah.
And then once you start, you just say, right, you've practiced it. You just need to keep calm,
That's it.
just keep calm and play steady, and then just concentrate till the end. But it's a real moment, and I'm sure everybody who's done it will have their own personal take on it.
Yeah. I have to say, it's, having seen it in person myself, you can hear a pin drop in the whole place. The whole place falls silent and you just hear the piper. It's really magical, honestly. So you were actually awarded an MBE for your services to piping in the military and the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. Can you tell me about that experience of actually going to get your MBE? Did you have the opportunity to meet Her Majesty the Queen?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
The presentation took place at Buckingham Palace, uh, and you have a wee sort of you get a little brief before you do it.
Oh,
You're
right. Yeah.
told what the protocol is, and you also get told that you'll be probably not more than 4 or 5 seconds, and you might get a very small few words going, but it'll not go on very long. Well, when I went up, it seemed to become a conversation. The
Oh
Queen was
wow,
asking
really?
questions, and because she's very interested in piping, but she was talking about the sovereign piper at the time.
Right.
It was Derek Potter from the Royal Scots Guards who became
Yes.
the sovereign piper, and he'd been the first sovereign piper who wasn't in the infantry. So the first sovereign piper from the armour corps, and she was very aware of that, and she was asking, she knew that he was the first pipe major from out with the infantry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanked me for making that choice, and very pleased with her sovereign's piper. And so
Wow.
yeah, and then when I received the MBE and walked off, and then all the people at the palace saying, "Why did it take so long? Why was she?" It's not my fault.
See, I have heard that. I have heard that, our Queen is, a bit of a piping fan, that she does enjoy the sound of the instrument. Yeah. So that's quite incredible, actually. Yeah. Who knows? She might even follow the competitive scene. You never know.
Yes.
So I have to say then, from getting your MBE and being involved in the Edinburgh Tattoo and all your service in the military, then you went from that to teaching in the National Piping Centre then for quite a number of years, actually. Can you tell me about your time then at the NPC, as it's known as? How did you find things there?
Yes. Well, when I left the military, I decided I was going to do so much service, and I was 45 when I left the military, so I was still relatively young.
Yeah.
And I actually settled in Inverness. That was going to be the place where I was going to settle down, and me and my wife we had a house up there. And about 6 months after I left, I got a phone call from Roddy McLeod saying, would you be interested in coming down and teaching at the National Piping Centre on the degree course? It's 3 days a week. And I thought, well, that just suits me fine. That would be great if I got that opportunity. So I said yes, I would love to do it. So I ended up going down, and then we sold our house in Inverness and moved down to just outside Glasgow. And I spent 9 years at the National Piping Centre teaching in that course. I actually felt it was a great privilege, because you're teaching the talented students, coming through in that course. And when I was doing the director's job, director of Army Bagpipe Music, I mean, that's a hugely responsible job, and it was lots of paperwork and writing reports and justification letters and all sorts of things that you had to do. That although I did do quite a bit of teaching in the Army and on the course, in the Pipe Majors course, there was lots of other things that was, I wouldn't say distracting, but they just had other responsibilities.
Yeah, admin type things. Yeah.
So when I went to the National Piping Centre teaching in this course, it was just purely teaching. So I felt like, I think this is what Willie Ross must have felt like when he was teaching the way back, because he would have been not so much the admin, it was just purely the teaching. So I always sort of compared it to that, and I embraced that, because it's a privilege, to teach these talented individuals.
That's it. And if anything, you did mention it, the talent of some of the students who go through that course is incredible. So, it's bound to have been an interesting process for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're steering them, you see. Some of them are really, really good players on arrival. Some of them are just need to be finished off a little bit. But it's not so much about teaching them, it's guiding them, to realise what their potentials are. And also, saying, well, you're maybe not so familiar with this aspect of piping. Why don't you give that a try? Because it's important you try everything.
Yeah, well, that's it indeed. Yeah, for sure. No, I could talk to you about your time with teaching forever, but I've got a few more questions, honestly. You were also appointed a senior judge as part of the Solo Piping Judges Association, and you had the opportunity to judge at the Glenfiddich a few times. And I have to say, that has to be the hardest job in bagpiping.
Yes.
How did you find your time, being a judge at the Glenfiddich Championship?
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, it's a huge responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know that it's because it's recorded as well, and it's. I wouldn't say it's the most enjoyable experience, because if you're enjoying it, then you're probably not doing your job.
No,
It's
that's it. Yeah.
because you're really focused. You're mentally tuned in for that day.
Yeah.
Say, right, I need to be absolutely focused on that, and you don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to let your fellow judges down, and most importantly, you don't want to let the competitors down.
Yeah.
So and I suppose, I mean, I treat every competition like that, but because it's the big one, as it were, you really are tuned in. So
A lot of pressure.
I'd also say as well, you probably listen a little bit more differently than you would be as you were actually just sitting there in the audience.
Yeah, I with the feet up. Yeah.
If you're not judging, you're sitting there just appreciating the music for what it is.
Yeah.
And I ask questions of myself there. When you're actually listening there, when you've not got that pressure of judging, are you actually hearing more? Because you're that focused and when you're judging, that you're in a cocoon.
Yeah.
But are you taking everything in? You're not, maybe you're appreciating it in a different way. So there's a bit of debate there for me.
For sure. Yeah. That's interesting, actually. Yeah, because as a spectator, you get to take in the venue, the atmosphere, and all of that. But as you say, as a judge, you kind of have to be so severely focused. Yeah. Some would argue that the judges have the most difficult job on the day, never mind playing in the actual thing, because you are there performance after performance. Performers, after they're finished, they get to go and have a beer and relax for a bit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Indeed.
but having been a competitor myself, you know what the competitors are going through. I mean, I was lucky enough that I qualified once to play at the Glenfiddich, and that's an experience that I'll never forget. It's quite a thing.
That's it, to tread the boards. Yeah. Well, if anything, I could probably talk to you about another 3 hours for that one as well, Stuart. But I have to ask you then about, the Basel tattoo in Switzerland. A good number of people who've been on the show here before have been part of the Basel tattoo. Am I right in saying that you're the director of the mass pipes and drums for the Basel tattoo?
I am, yes. I've been doing that since 2007. So the year before I left the military, probably about 2002 or 2003, I met a gentleman called Eric Juilliard, who was the founder and lead drummer of Top Secret Drum Corps.
Oh, yeah.
And so he got to know me a little bit through the tattoo, and he decided a few years after that, he was going to start his own tattoo in Basel.
There you are.
So he asked me, he says, look, would you be interested in coming and helping me direct our mass pipes and drums? And I says, well, yeah, I'll come over and have a listen and see what it's all about. And 2007 went over and gave him a little bit of a hand, and he says, look, that was great. Would you like to continue? He says, I know that you're leaving the military. We can offer you a position as our director of mass pipes and drums. So, and I've been doing that ever since. And it's not only Basel, they also did 3 years, and they organised a tattoo in Berlin as well in the same year. And I've done the 3 Christmas tattoos as well with the Basel production team. So yeah, so I've done quite a few tattoos now with that production company, and I love it. And I love working with mass bands. I just like the whole thing about it. Lots of people would run a mile, trying to be in charge of somebody's got to be in charge. But
that's it.
It's just something I enjoy. I just like seeing the end product. I like sort of, putting them through their paces in a gentle way.
And there is a certain buzz about it, for sure. As that band hits the floor, there is something in the arena. And, I have watched a lot of the footage actually of the Basel tattoo, and there's something electric there that you just can't capture. Is that something that you intentionally try to do whenever you're like picking tunes and things like that to kind of add that bit of emphasis? Yeah.
Well, I arrange the music, and I've written a lot of music for the show because I want to make the the mass pipes and drums, it's my music. It's my sort of thing that I put together.
Yeah.
So a lot of the tunes that I've written is actually written for more mass pipes and drums. And if you want to make spice it up, make it a little bit more technical, and that can easily be done by the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my tunes is set for how can I write something that's going to even enhance the drumming. Let the drumming come through and what the pipers is playing. So it's all about the creating a musical program which your audience is going to actually hear only once, but actually when they hear it, they go, "Oh, I enjoyed that. I can actually connect to that."
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to achieve. That the what you put together is likable by your audience. So you've got to know what your audience is sort of looking for. So there's a little bit of mix here. There's maybe the odd little sort of we've played the Arrival, the ABBA tune. The three-part harmonies, and stuff.
Brilliant.
So you make it interesting.
Yeah.
So I like to use a lot of harmonies, and I just like to make it interesting for the pipers, that's playing the pipe music.
Mm-hmm.
And we put the scores, the drum scores, we used to do videos of the tenor drum flourishing and stuff. Everything to give them every chance to rehearse, 6 months in advance. So when they come for the rehearsals, you have 10, 12 bands coming together. They've never seen one another before. And all of a sudden they're playing this music. They hear it for the first time themselves as a mass. And that's the moment they're going, "Oh, this is going to be great." Because they can feel it. This is it. We are now at the point where we're just about to perform in front of an audience as a mass, pipes and drums. And I try to sort of tell them, once we all come together, we're all one big family. We're one team. We're not all different bands. We're one band.
One big band.
Work together and help each other, and it works a treat. We all have a good time.
That's it.
Playing and socially as well.
Well, of course, have to. Yeah, totally. Can I ask then, that coming together moment of all those separate units all coming together in one spot, but a lot of bands would be international, and a lot of, English wouldn't be their first language, obviously, for a lot of these bands. Do you ever find that, the music doesn't need translation, or do you need to kind of communicate that, across borders, that kind of thing?
Not really. I mean, I've always found that the bands have always turned up pretty well prepared.
Yeah.
So when you actually do the musical sort of proof the music musically together for the first time, it's usually not far away, and it's just a case of just tightening up maybe some of the breaks and the tempos.
Aye. And that was it, really. Yeah.
And that's it, really. And then the hard bit for me is I've got 2.5 days to then teach them the drill. And you get into all these fancy formations, and they don't even know what they're getting into until they arrive. And I sold up a picture and I say, "This is what you're going to be doing."
Right, and then they all look like rabbits in the headlights, that kind of thing.
We'll never do that. But I've got a system that works for me how we do that. So.
There you go, brilliant. So, Stuart, I could talk to you about tattoos, being a judge, your time in the military. I could have you on the show here for hours, but I want to get into the meat of the interview, where about 10 years ago, you released your first collection, which is The Land of Bends and Glens and Heroes. And now, 10 years on, you're releasing a brand new collection of tunes, which is called the Parkgrove Collection. Can you tell us then, is this kind of 10 years worth of work all in this one collection?
Yes, yeah. It was 2011 that I took out Lands and Bends, and that was probably music that accumulated since the Spike Majors of the Gordon Highlanders in the early 90s. I'd maybe composed some tunes for commanding officers leaving and regimental events, and that tunes started to build up a little bit. But it wasn't until I really went to the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo when I was a director, and then you started maybe writing tunes for Edinburgh. Lest We Forget was a tune that I wrote, which I played myself in the Ramparts in 2005. And that tune is like now people so many people's asked me for that music, or lest we forget, because it's not too long. It only lasts just about a minute 20. But it's like a pibroch. It's like a pibroch condensed right down into a minute
A couple
20.
of minutes. Yeah.
So it's like a lot of people's asked me for that music for remembrance, commemorations and stuff like that. So that was great. And then as I was building that music up, I then got posted. Well, not posted. I went to work at the National Piping Centre. And then being there with the degree students who are always being pushed to compose, and it's just an inspirational place. Shared an office with Finlay MacDonald as well. And he'd be coming in and saying, "Oh, I've written a new tune last night." And let me hear it and saying, "Oh, that's a cracker." And then I would come in after the weekend and say, "I've written 3 tunes this weekend." So there's a bit of sort of banter going on there. So I wrote a lot of music at that time, and it was Finlay that says, "Look, you really need to bring out a book." And so that's how the 2011 book came about. And it's more, it's got a lot of photographs in that book. It tells a lot about my history, where I come from, my career, and stories of the tunes at that time. Whereas my new collection is more about, not so much about the story about me, because it's there in the first book, it's just all about the music and the story behind the tunes. And that's an accumulation of tunes over the last since 2011, so 10 years, yeah.
There you are, yeah. So can I ask about the title of the book then? The Parkgrove Collection. Can you tell us where the title came from?
Yeah, it's pretty basic actually, but it's the name of the house where I'm living.
Oh, well,
because a lot of the tunes, a lot of the tunes I wrote here, because I didn't imagine I'd be able to produce this book for another 2 or 3 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it's because of the lockdown that I was able to bring that book a way forward.
Yeah.
Because there's no Basel tattoo, there's nothing happening for me.
So you had time on your hands.
So I said, I need to get my hands into something and keep myself occupied. So my wee piping room that I've got, just sort of got myself in there and said, right, let's start writing some music. And probably about 20 tunes are in that book. It was written, in my wee piping room here at Parkgrove.
There you go. So the Parkgrove Collection was born, really. So we're going to play some tunes actually from this collection, Stuart. We're going to start actually with a set of jigs here. We have Cargill's Leap, Skim in the Water, The Quantum Leap, and The Glass Chanter. Now, I'm not going to ask you about the first 3 tunes, but can you tell me about the story behind The Glass Chanter? I think there is bound to be a story here.
Yes, well, in the Highlands of Scotland, there was in the Highland Games circuit for the solo piping competitions, they had an aggregate prize. So whoever accumulated the most points and prizes, I think there must have been about maybe 15 or 20 competitions, and whoever won the most points was presented this Caithness glass chanter, which you kept for a year.
I see.
So I was lucky enough to win it in 1997. I was posted at Cameron Barracks at Inverness at that time, recruiting, and so I was piping all the time. So I was really tip top, very much fit in my player.
Yeah.
So I was at every single games. I didn't miss one. So I was accumulating points, quite easily, because I was at everything. Not all the pipers could go to all of the games. But I mean, there's lots of great pipers. Alistair Gillis had won that chanter, Donald John McIntyre, DG McIntyre, Neil Matheson was probably won that a few times. So yes, so I won that chanter in 1997. I had to keep it for a year and hand it back, not broken.
Not broken. Yeah, so now we have a tune of it. Yeah. So without further ado, I think we'll play this wee set of jigs. Stuart, that was fantastic. Honestly, I have to say, this is a collection of 56 different tunes. So you only heard a number of jigs there, but this collection has pretty much every time signature covered. Reels, hornpipes, strathspeys, everything on here really for all pipers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very conscious that for the index, I would like to produce a book that's got everything. You know, it's when you look at it, you go, wow, there's lots of marches, simple and compound time. I love strathspeys. You know, I really, whether it's because I'm from the northeast of Scotland and all the fiddle music, I've got sort of connections to the fiddle music in Scotland, and I really like sort of strathspeys. So I'm feeling blessed that I was able to come up with 5 strathspeys for this book. And my first book, 2 of my strathspeys actually ended up getting played. One with Scottish Power in 2012, the Hill of Garvick, and their medley. And in 2019, Field Marshal played one of my strathspeys, Wanda J. Samson, which is named after my wife.
There you go. I was going to ask you about that.
So to hear, when you hear your music being played, you know, by these bands, that's a moment you think, wow, that's something. You know, it was a great moment. You feel very proud that people actually they listen to your music and say, yeah, we're quite happy to play that.
That's it. And if anything, those jigs that we just heard, I could definitely hear a band playing that for sure. But we'll have another set that I can already tell that's going to be an excellent starter tune for a band, and we'll keep that. But there's another tune that really kind of piqued my interest, Stuart, that you uploaded these performances to your YouTube channel, and we're sharing them here now on our podcast. It's the pibroch that you had written, The Flame of Remembrance. Can you tell us the story behind this tune then before we actually play it?
Yes, well, there's 2 pibrochs in the book, and this is the second pibroch that I composed. And I just felt, you know, one day because I like to pick my pipes up and just play anything. So you just play, improvise. Yeah. So I play something really slow, like pibroch style, and I record myself, and then I came up with this phrase, and it was just that one phrase, and you build it from there. And that's what pibroch's all about. It's phrases that you put together and you build a theme. So I thought, oh, this is potential for me, that I quite like the way this is going. So I composed the tune, and then when you're composing, you're thinking, what am I trying to achieve with the theme? What's it going to be called? Yeah. Sometimes it's easier when you've got the name first. So you've got a theme, and then you're composing to that sort of which fits the name. And it didn't have a name, so I'm thinking I really need to come up with something I don't want to make it a name that's not going to be usable. Yes. Either. So I thought, well, The Flame of Remembrance, it takes in such a wide, for the individual, they can put their own thoughts on that. You know, it can be associated to the military, to remembrance from the wars from the past, First World War, and all the people that sacrificed their lives. It can be related to all the sadness and loss of lives in COVID. You know, the times that we're in now. So anybody can take that and personally put their own sort of thoughts into their own feelings. The notes are there. But depending on the individual's thoughts, they might express it slightly different to how they're, and that's what pibroch's all about. It's emotions. You should play the tune. You know, there's certain tunes it's hard to play the same twice, exactly the same, because you might be stretching the note a little bit longer one day compared to the next, because it's in your feelings and in your body. You know, at that particular time, how you express the tune.
That's it indeed. So we're going to play a little clip of this here, actually. This is The Flame of Remembrance, performed by Stuart. And yeah, you can keep that emotion in mind as you're listening to this. So that was the Flame of Remembrance, Pembroke there. So that was the ground and the first variation. But the whole tune actually is in the Parkgrove Collection. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah, the whole tune's in the Parkgrove Collection, and I will get around to recording the whole tune sometime going forward, but not in a too far distance, and I'll put that on my YouTube channel.
Excellent, excellent stuff. So can I ask you then about your approach to composition? You did mention there about, picking a topic and then composing towards that topic. Has there ever been a time where, do you ever sit down at a table and say, right, I'm writing a tune today? Or does it just happen to you as you're sitting at traffic lights? You get a phrase just pop into your head. How does it work for you?
It's a bit of both. Sometimes you're asked specifically to compose a piece of music.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
So then you're like, well, okay, and then you go away worrying. You go away and worry and go, I hope I can come up with something. But I've never really had. I've never really been stuck. Sometimes you think today's not a good day. It's not going to happen. You just got to accept that it's not happening today. And then the next day you wake up and you say, right, I'll try and come up with something for this particular tune. And then, hey, presto, it's happened. Or you might get the basics of it, and then you can work on it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the other time, it's phrases that come into your head. It can be the middle of the night. It's very often I've seen me getting up 3 o'clock in the morning and going through to where my phone's charging and pressing the record button and singing into the phone a phrase. And then when you wake up in the morning, you listen to the phrase again and you go, yeah, that sounds promising. We'll see if we can build something on that. And the other thing I like to do is maybe play, a 6/8 march, and at the end of that, continue to improvise and play, and you're recording at the same time. And I've actually become quite. I'm quite good at improvising now. I can play maybe four parts and keep going.
There you go.
I might get the odd little note wrong, but it's all seems to fit in, and I think it's because I'm writing so much music, not just composing, but writing music for the tattoos to send out to the bands. So you're maybe just subconsciously becoming more aware of note patterns.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's interesting as well, how you've become more experienced.
That's it. And then able to put pen to paper at the end of it. Yeah. So can I ask then about, do you have anything that you would count as being like inspirational to you? You did mention about being, the fiddle scene there and Strasbourg music and stuff. Is there anything then that particularly does inspire you to write music?
I think it's just rubbing shoulders with other people that's creative. And I see things maybe a little bit different now because I've had the opportunity to work at Basel, and I do a lot of work with their director of music, who's got his own orchestra, Christoph Walter Orchestra. And Christoph, he writes a lot of music, and also for the pipes. He'll send stuff to me saying, I've written this for the pipes, we'll do this in the finale. And then he gets me to check the bagpipe part, and I say, yeah, well, maybe change. How about changing it a little bit here? I can hear it, maybe the pipes playing a counter melody and stuff. And so we've built up a good rapport on that. So I've done a lot of jobs with him, gigging with his orchestra, and I love playing with the orchestra. But I love being as part of the orchestra, just socially. And they're all fantastic musicians. And it's like, well, then I realised, because being a piper, we all say to ourselves, oh, we're just a piper. We're not just a piper, we're all musicians at the end of the day. Whether you're a piper or a drummer, or playing the flute or the clarinet, we're all musicians regardless. And the orchestra, it was like they were treating me as if you're a soloist musician of the highest order. I'm just a piper. So I started to realise, there's more about this music thing. If you get the opportunity to play in that situation, I would say anybody gets the opportunity, go do it. It's great fun.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's pretty wise words there. Yeah, I dare say not many pipers have had that opportunity, but those who have sung its praises for sure. So yeah, good advice there, Stuart. Now, before I let you go, I have to say again, thank you so much for chatting to us here on the show and telling us all about the Parkgrove Collection. Those of you watching the video here on YouTube or listening to this podcast right now, go to sdsamsonmusic.com, pick this up. You will not regret it. That's Big Rab Show seal of approval right there. We do have another final set to bring you here at the end of the interview. But before we do that, we have some Big Rab Show staple questions that we ask every guest that comes on. And I'm afraid you're not going to escape them either, Stuart. So I have to ask you then, Stuart Samson, what is your favorite cheese?
My favorite, what, sorry, we're breaking up there.
What is your favorite cheese?
Cheese. Oh,
Yes.
Cheddar.
Good choice. Good choice. There you go. So can I ask then as well, what has been your most embarrassing moment in piping throughout all of your storied career? Is there one that stands out that makes you cringe?
Probably a few. There's one going away back when we were serving in Berlin, and I remember being on a stage with the band, and I was we were in a big semicircle, and there was an audience, and it was some sort of high up, might have been sort of royalty at it as well.
Oh wow, yeah.
But not it wasn't the anyway. That's by the way. Anyway, it was one of these moments when I talked about the misfire.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
So the military band, the regimental band was there as well. I think we were playing a tune called Rosa Kelvin Grove or something like that, which is we play quite a lot. And you got the introduction, and then you strike the bag in for 4, and then you start playing. Well, let's strike the bag in. No, it's no happening. It's no happening.
Oh
and
no.
the conductor's, he's actually holding up. So the whole band's going, and I'm going, start smacking it. Nothing's happening.
Oh,
and then the
no.
pipe sergeant, who's at the other side, he struck up and started to play it.
Oh.
So it just shows you, these things can happen.
Oh, that's it indeed.
I'm not beyond it. So
No, for sure. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic story. Brilliant. Thanks, Stuart. So also, before I let you go on, we do play this final set. Can I ask you then, have you any advice for players who are picking up the chanter for the first time, or maybe, learning tunes and that for the first time? Any words of wisdom or advice for new players?
Yeah, I mean, the most thing is just to enjoy your practice. Because practice is actually the most important part of making yourself better. So if you can make your practice sort of regime a bit enjoyable, so for me, how I did it was I made up my own timetable. It wasn't like my mum or my dad was going to say, this is when you're going to play. You sort of say, no, I'm going to do my time, my practice, but you work it in your schedule, as it were. This is when I'm going to practice, and this is when I'm going to do it. Because I know lots of kids, they've got lots of things going on. It's not just going to be the practice centre. They've got lots of other interests. And I had a lot of interests as well. I was very, very sporty, and was always doing lots of that stuff as well. So you have to try and fit it all in. So enjoy your practice, and even if you're going to practice, it's better to practice 15 minutes well than half an hour not concentrating.
Yeah.
See, so make less is more. Even if you're going to do an hour's practice, I say a lot of students I've taught, actually, if you're trying to memorize a piece of music, if you're going to sit down for an hour and try and memorize that piece of music, you're better doing 4 15-minute
small blocks.
Because every time you go back to it, your mind and your brain's having to remember it. Over and over and over and over and over. You've got to take a break and go back to it. Take a break and go back to it. And every time you go back to it, that's when you're making a little bit of progress.
I see.
So it's not, for me, I would say it's not the length of practice, it's the amount of practice sessions that you're putting together.
There you are. No,
Small
that's great
bursts.
advice. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Stuart. I really appreciate that. So, I have to say again, a massive thank you from all of us here in the Big Rab Show. It's been great to have you on, Stuart, and we hope you'll be back on a future show. Who knows?
Well,
And
it's my first time on the show, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you very much for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about things that I do, and also give my book a plug.
yeah.
So thank
No,
you.
of course. So the Parkgrove Collection is available now. It's on Stuart's website. So like I say, sdsamsonmusic.com. Go and pick yourself up a copy. We're actually going to close the interview with a set here, which is a slow air called Heading to the Harbour, and possibly one of my favorites. I'm finishing on this one on purpose, Stuart. It's called the Doolander. Now, I think this hornpipe is an incredible tune that I can hear bands playing into the arena. You know what I mean? So can you tell me about the tune, the Doolander? Where did it come from?
Well, again, it's just sort of practicing about it. I like sort of tunes that go up and down. You know, they've got this patterns that go up and down the scale.
Yeah.
A tune that I sort of really liked playing was a reel called a hornpipe called the Hawk, and it's got sort of similarities to that tune.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of the same sort of style, as it were. And I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to try and make something similar, but my own in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so this tune, I finished it, and then I had to come up with a name. And that's sometimes picking a name's harder than writing the tune itself. So I think, I think of something that's a bit sort of different. And then I started to think back to my army times and some of the words that we used to use or names we used to give things. And the Doolander was the name. We used to quite often hear that word getting said, especially on the band bus. We'd be going somewhere to Highland Games or somewhere, and you'd see some old guy with the big Balmoral bonnet on, or the tam o' shanter, the old ones, they're really wide.
Yeah.
And we used to call that, check that guy's Doolander out. You see, the Doolander. And a do in the northeast of Scotland, which is what we call it, it's a pigeon.
Oh, yes.
You see, so because the hat's such a big circumference, you see, that's a Doolander, it's a pigeon lander. Pigeon will land in the hat.
Yeah.
It's a landing pad, so it's that's how the name came about. So it's a bit of fun.
It's a fantastic tune and a fantastic collection of music, Stuart. So thank you all so much for sharing it with the piping world and for being part of our podcast this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, here's an amazing set of tunes for you.